We're on pirate radio now. Bro, we've blown up.
Can't believe you're not pirates now. What are you doing later?
Meet me tonight and get some sort of sick.
How? You got no money, no guns, nowhere to go.
It's the biggest New Year's Eve ever. Getting into that party is the only thing that matters.
Boys, we're going on a mission.
It's probably the only place with tickets left.
Wait, doesn't your ex work in there?
We're not on the most amicable terms. You don't happen to have like 4 tickets left for twice as...
I remember New Year's when I was 18. Goddamn.
What you wearing then, kid?
Hating on my wardrobe.
Oh, your mum's a wardrobe.
No, it is in fact your mum that is a wardrobe. Your mum's Narnia, bruv.
Let me grab a large order of plantain.
You mean plantain?
Plantain.
Plantain?
Listen, Shaba. Plantain.
Where you find that? On a mountain? Oh.
I think she's into me.
I can't mess up my chances, so she knows all the words of Gangster's Paradise.
Bro, this is the last time things are gonna be the way they were.
Who punched off your face for you? Was it Steven Seagal?
Boys, whatever happens, we're doing New Year's together.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. The Black Cultural Archives are bringing to you a very special event this evening. We are in conversation with the writer and director and cast of the new film, Pirates. Backstage, we have Reggie Yates ready to come to the fore to tell us a little bit more about his vintage film set in the 90s.
Vintage is a word that hasn't been used to describe it yet, but I'll take it. I'll take vintage.
It's vintage. I mean, that Peugeot. When I saw the photo, we'll get to it. So Reggie, most of you know Reggie probably from Rust the Mouse, right?
Okay.
Yes. If we're talking about from that time, when I've been saying to people, yeah, this week I'm going to interview Reggie Yates, they're like, okay, that guy, he makes documentaries. I was like, yeah, but do you remember Rust the Mouse? Everybody remembers Rust the Mouse, right? Everybody. Because it was seminal. And I know you're closing your eyes thinking, what is this woman coming to chat to me about Rust the Mouse for? Because it's positioning, right? Because what we're showing our audience is the depth of your talent and how much you've grown.
Okay.
Wouldn't you agree? Because Pirates is a long way from Rust the Mouse, from being a children's entertainer to being a writer, producer, director. Is significant, Reggie, man. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly the the center of my career and my achievements. Definitely, it's something I'm proud of without a doubt. But you know, I've been in television for 30 years, and in that time, I've done lots of different things, with Rust the Mouse being one of them. But I think that the time that I spent making documentaries, maybe, or even hosting primetime television, were the moments where I got the biggest audiences, the moments when I spoke to the most people, and the moments where being myself and also bringing to the fore what it means to be a young Black man, and at the same time proud of that and standing in that, regardless of the arena, probably cut through the most.
What does that mean, though, being a young, proud Black man and standing in that arena? What does that mean, and how has that informed or impacted your work?
Well, it's about knowing who you are and also not being afraid to be your truest self in any environment, and also not code switch. I think for a lot of us, there has been a lot of energy around authenticity, particularly in these last 2 years. And for me personally, that's the cornerstone of everything I've done.
What would you say was your greatest achievement, or the piece of work then that you're most proud of?
I hope my greatest achievement is still to come. I feel as though there's a lot of work to do, really, in terms of what I've done up until this point. And looking back on what I have done over the years, I'm incredibly proud of so much of it. I think the factual filmmaking is a huge part of maybe my proudest work, because that was possibly the most challenging, for sure.
You've had a really varied career. As you'd stated, you've made films, you've made documentaries, your first acting debut was at 8 years old. And you've really done a little bit of everything. And you tend to find that people kind of stay in one track. Is that because you had to learn to be good at lots of different things to craft different opportunities for yourself? Or were you just naturally good at everything?
Oh, I'm definitely not naturally good at everything. I'm rubbish at a lot of things. The boys are putting me under pressure at the moment. And by the boys, I mean the cast, who you guys will meet shortly. Because tomorrow morning, I'm doing a bit of press for the film on Soccer AM. And I've got to kick a football on camera, and I know that the boys don't want me to let them down. So, so I'm feeling the pressure of that not being one of my strongest skills, for sure. But yeah, over the years, I've definitely worked on different elements of what it is that I'm good at, and different elements of what it is I need to be better at. And without doubt, I think that idea of sense of self being at the center of the work that I've done has only made my work stronger over the years. So to begin with, as an actor, you're essentially, particularly a child actor, you're driven by other people's narratives. You know, you have less control. You take the work that you're given in a lot of ways. And as a presenter, it was very much the same thing. And then, you know, moving into national radio and hosting Radio 1 for over a decade, when you're hosting something like the chart show and you're announcing the nation's #1, you get 10 minutes with the biggest pop star in the world, and there is no room for you to put your stamp on that interview or to put your stamp on that conversation. So I've always sort of struggled to try and find a way to make sure that what I do is both authentic to me and also has my own fingerprints and my own stamp on it. And that was really difficult in presenting. You know, if you're hosting something like Top of the Pops or hosting something like The Voice, you're live and you've only got a certain amount of time to deliver the link, but also find a way to make it your own. And it was in documentary that I really came into my own in that sense.
How did you find documentary? Was that a natural progression? Because I think most people that I speak to, they have the impression that documentaries is boring. It's not really that creative. It doesn't have the same appeal of, say, a feature film. So how did you find your way there?
It was almost by accident, to be honest with you. I was asked to go to Kidda, which is one of the biggest slums in Africa, which is actually in Kenya. I went there at the age of about 22 or 23 for comic relief. And we made 3 hours of television that raised over £1 million. And what we were essentially made to do was spend a week in the slum and work and live there and basically embed ourselves in that environment. And off the back of making that documentary and what it was I was doing on screen apparently seemed to resonate quite a lot. I was challenged to make more documentaries, and I pushed back. And my pushback actually came in the form of me saying that I wasn't the right person to front a documentary because people like me don't front documentaries. I've never seen anyone like me do it before. No one's going to believe me. No one's going to trust me as a source. I'm not a journalist, etc. And the person I was talking to, who at the time was a really important mentor for me, said that is exactly why you should be doing it, because it doesn't exist. And in going into documentaries, knowing that my uniqueness would give me a perspective that had never really been seen before in the factual space, made what I believe to be seminal work, made what I believe to be work that really challenged perception in a lot of ways, which is why that work went on to find a global audience on Netflix.
When you say people like me, what do you mean? What does that intersection mean? Because yes, you're Black, and yes, you're a male, but what else does that mean, people like me?
Well, to be specific to myself, it's, being working class, being the child of an immigrant, being West African, but also growing up in a multicultural area. Knowing that my point of difference comes from being somebody who is a Londoner, and that is somebody who eats every different type of food and goes to school in a class with people who speak 11 different languages. It's about actually knowing that you are part of something bigger than yourself. And to be able to be young, be Black, be working class, and be in Russia in front of racists and have a worldview when you're talking to somebody who doesn't, it allows you to come to the table with a very different perspective. So it's not just about race or class, it's about having a worldview, which is something that is incredibly unique. And that's something you get if you grow up in a city like London.
And I think that's something that's expressed in your most recent film, your feature, Pirates, which is based in London at a specific time. And the reason I called it vintage is because for me, it was like looking back. And when I watched it, I was like, tune, I remember that tune. I remember those clothes. I'm sure that when you guys had the I guess your pirate radio set up, it looked like a block of flats at the back of East Street. And there were so many things that visually I could relate to that took me back to a moment in time. So you wrote the film and you directed the film. How much of it was based on your experience?
Well, yeah, all of it is based on an abridged version of my experiences growing up in London. I've said it a few times in interviews now, you know, the film is the world that I grew up in. It's the people I grew up with, the school that I went to, the barber shop that I went to, the Caribbean takeout I went to. All of those things are sort of piled in, and it's a shared experience in a lot of ways, which is why I feel that, you know, if you're watching this with a Black audience or an audience of a similar generation, they are picking up on things in a different way to maybe a white audience or a broader mainstream audience, because ultimately this is a coming of age story that is the human experience, and that is definitely universal in a lot of ways that should appeal to everyone. But there is subtext, and there is definitely specificities that speak to people who grew up listening to UK garage music, that grew up in those areas or went to those parties.
How long did it take you to put pen to paper and craft? So say your first draft, or was this something that you've been playing in your head for the last 10 years that you've always wanted to do?
No, the first draft was actually quite quick. I wrote the first draft in 10 days while I was in Los Angeles. I was greenlit to write the script, and I wasn't able to get to it straight away because I actually had to go to LA to make a documentary for BBC Two called TV's Black Renaissance. And that was actually a documentary about filmmakers in the US who were redefining what culture means from an African-American perspective. So I was sat with people like Mahershala Ali and Lena Waithe and the Wayans brothers, and talking to them about their history in television, talking to them about their history in film, and discussing the realities of how global culture is being shaped by Black people in the US specifically. And it was just really fascinating and inspiring. So I extended my trip and spent 10 days writing the first draft of the script, and it just poured out on me. I was that inspired.
That's quick, and that's really quick. And then what happened after that? You've got your first draft of your script, and you said, right, I'm going to make this film. How am I going to make this film? Like, what process did you go through? Because you were clearly doing another work which was of a high caliber. So was it difficult for you to get funding for your film, or did you have to be really creative in where you went and who you asked?
Oh no, so as I said, I was greenlit prior to actually writing. So I was greenlit to script before I actually wrote the screenplay. So I pitched the idea, I got the green light to write the screenplay, and then I had to go away and make this documentary. So I wrote it already knowing that I had the backing to a point, but I still had to sing for my supper. I then had to take that screenplay to the BFI and pitch it and try and get the money to actually get it over the line, because BBC Film were able to support me to a point. National Lottery funding would cover another chunk of the budget, but ultimately the largest chunk was coming from the BFI, the British Film Institute. And I had to go in with my deck, and I had to go in with my ideas and with my pitch, and I pitched it, and thank the Lord they said yes, because I'm really proud of what myself and these three young gentlemen have produced that you're about to meet.
How much was your budget?
It was tiny to begin with. It wasn't that much over £1 million. We were about 1.3 to begin with. And then we had that unfortunate meeting with Auntie Rona. So we had about 10 days left to shoot, and then Corona hit. And we then had about a 220-day break. And we didn't know if we were going to come back or not. We didn't know if we were going to be able to find the money. And we did, which put our budget over the 2 million mark. So it's still a tiny, tiny film in the greater scheme of things, you know. small budget in the US is 5 million, and you know, we made this movie for 2, and we didn't have masses, but we made the best with what we've got. And because of my incredible DP, Rachel Clark, the film looks a lot more expensive than it actually is. And we were able to, you know, beg, borrow, and steal the best equipment, the best gear, and some of the best rigs to really elevate some of the sequences in the film.
And you could see that, and so that's why I asked about the budget, because I was like, oh, it looks like it cost a few quid. But so let's have an ask. Okay, so in terms of the rest of your crew, can we bring them in now, if that's okay? We cool to bring them in now, as they're coming up on. Hey, Jordan.
Hello.
Reda and Elliot. Cool. So how did you choose your crew, Reggie?
My crew specifically,
or the boys.
My cast, we went through the usual casting process, and I worked alongside Shaheen Baig, who the boys will know well. And Shaheen is one of, if not the best casting directors in the UK, in my humble opinion. And I worked with Shaheen on 2 other short films previously, and she was just incredible and put amazing talent in front of me to work with. So Shaheen cast alongside myself, obviously Daniel Kaluuya in one of my short films, and a young man called Tosin Cole, who now has gone on to do amazing things. And I trusted her. So coming into the process to make this feature film, Shaheen had a list of people who I'd never seen before. And before these young men walked in the room, she whispered in my ear, "They're terrible, don't cast." And I was like, no, let's give them a chance. No, that's actually quite the opposite of what happened. She was very open about how much she loved them and how strong she thought they were as performers. And I literally had to bite my lip and not offer them the part in the moment, because they were all so perfect. The only person that wasn't that, hilariously, is Elliot, who has to do so much in the film, because Elliot came in reading for what I think we can all agree was the wrong part. Elliot came in reading for the role that ultimately went to Reda. And the minute that he read for Cappo, he was just head and shoulders above anybody else I'd seen, and I knew that was my guy.
So in terms of characters, so if we can start with Elliot then, since he got to switch a role, what was attractive to you about the film? So in the film, you play the character Cappo, who is part of the crew but had gone off to university. So his life was going in a slightly different trajectory. So how did you feel when you read the script?
First thing, I saw Reggie Yates in Garage, and I was like, yeah, this can't go wrong. Like, Reggie's somebody that I've grown up watching on TV, and I just always wanted to meet and listen and talk to him. But having the privilege to work with him was great, and that was something I wanted to do from the get-go. But it was one of the funniest scripts I've ever read. Like, I had the privilege of reading scripts pretty much every day as an actor, and it's not every day you have to go and stop, get some water, relax, cool off, and then get back to the script. I just found it hilarious, and it was a London that I could recognize, and I think that was the most important thing.
And the car you drove, I'm still stuck on your car. The yellow Peugeot was...
Yeah.
Like,
fantastic, isn't it?
I mean, no, it was really... it really helped center. I mean, apart from the clothes and everything else, the car just, for me, just killed it. It was just like, I remember that. I used to want to drive a convertible one of those. That was like one of my early car goals. And so the car touched my heart. So I thought that was really, not just was it clever, it just really played into the artistic nature of the film and made it more real. And Reda's character, Kidda, was, I feel like with your character, let me rephrase that. You guys were really emotional and you were really touchy-feely. And I haven't watched a film before, particularly a black or a British film, where the young guys are so physical. So maybe this is a Reggie question. What was that about, or what were you trying to challenge, or was that something that you injected in terms of how you played the character, Reda? Because you're not used to seeing young men being that physically comfortable touching each other without it being sexual, just that type of bonding.
Well, I guess Reggie's laughing. Well, here's the thing, right? So it actually goes back to the audition. when our very final chemistry read, like I knew Elliot from a film we had done before, and Elliot knew Jordan through Brit School and Lambda. They've known each other for nearly 10 years. So there was a comfortability between all of us three that we just understood, like, I can hug you, I can make it a little bit weird, and it won't be actually weird because, you know, we all know our characters and we all know each other. Like me and Jordan didn't know each other before, but we just clicked. So I think it adds to the level of comedy because that vulnerability you have with your boys, everyone has it, but some people think they're too cool. The thing about our characters is they just think they're cool, but they're not. Like none of us are cool at all. So we're just very open with each other. We can be vulnerable with each other. You still have this kind of like lack of communication sometimes, but we're very, very close as a crew and as characters and in real life as well. But it doesn't get that weird in real life, I promise.
Yeah.
It could have gone left there. It could have gone left.
Yeah.
To sort of add on to that,
you never. Sorry, carry on, Reggie.
Oh, that's okay. No problem. I was just going to say, just to add on to that, I think Reda's right. You know, that moment in the audition where the boys were able to be physically close with each other was a moment where I knew that there was a chemistry between them because there wasn't that fear to get close to your friends, which is what we needed to see. And, you know, Reda made a really good point. These three characters think they're cool, but they're not. And that was definitely the case for so many of the kids that I grew up around. You know, we all thought that we were cool enough to get into So Solid or cool enough to be in Heartless Crew, but the reality was we definitely weren't. And when you see a group of young friends who aren't aware that they're being watched, there is a physical closeness. There is a level of comfortability around each other that is like brothers. And, you know, whenever I'm with my brother, I'm all over him and I jump, you know, and I just as much as I hug him, I punch him. And that's what these boys are. You know, they're punching each other, they're cuddling each other. And the minute that they did that in the chemistry read, it had a level of authenticity that I knew spoke to that naivety of being in your teens.
No, it did. And that's what made it really special and made it easier to connect with the characters. I didn't really, there's something that I didn't really get though, is that Kidda never ever fought for the front seat. No one ever wanted to ride shotgun. You were just so happy to sit in the back. Like, what was that about? Like, I don't get it.
I'm going to tell you why. Right. The front seat, you got a glove box. It's long. You're more in harm's way. In the back, snacks. Time I got you on the side. Your phone. You can just chill and watch these two idiots argue about whatever. Do you know what I mean? So you can store so much stuff in the back seat. You're just chilling. Plus, I think if Kidda was in the front seat, he'd try to drive. So you don't want to see Kidda drive. I think it would be a very bad day on the motorways of London if Kidda was driving.
No, agreed. So now we land finally on Jordan Peters, who plays the character Tonne, which I think was my favorite character. And the reason I say that is because you were so fearless, or your character was so fearless, and you took up so much of the screen. Whenever you were in shot, I felt like I couldn't even breathe. And the original close-up of when you were started and you were talking to yourself about how beautiful you were and showing your confidence, like this self-talk. I do that to myself. I've never seen a guy do that, like, and the way in which it was shot was that it was close up and I could see your lips and I could see your mouth. And I was like, oh, his teeth are nice. Oh, his lips are nice. Yeah, I bet he is hot. He's probably a bit hot in it. And then we kind of pull out and I was like, yeah, he's all right. We can talk. And it helped me understand.
Thank you for the compliment.
Wow. No, but it helped me understand why Sophie was into you, because I was looking at Sophie like saying, yeah, all right, Sophie, I'm not really feeling it. But then as I got to know you as a character, I was like, he's so sweet. Until Kelly, that's the next argument.
Yeah, the Kelly situation was a bit mad. Yeah. It was a fun scene to do though. I mean, like the whole that was my audition scene. And I think that was the moment that landed me the job really. And yeah, it was just really fun to do. It was really fun playing that character because it's completely different from what I'm like. So yeah, all the complimenting in the mirror and the swagger and talking to the girls and sniffing girls' hairs and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't really do
all in a day's work.
But it was so much fun, like exploring that character 100%.
So Even though that was your audition scene, how much of yourself did you bring to it? Because the way you what I liked about the way that you played your character was it wasn't like a predator. You didn't come across as one of those boys that you have to run from, or you felt uncomfortable touching or hugging. And when you smelled Sophie's hair, it did not come across as raper or creeper, or it was just like oh my god, this girl smells so good. But and that's a balance, especially when you're a girl, because you're like, get away from me. But even though you were corny, you weren't creepy.
You know what helps? I think Reggie's writing helps a lot. The way he wrote the scenes were, it just, you could, he wrote it as such a fine balance for the character. That, you know, he's sweet. Like Reggie always said, there's a Terrell and a Tonne, and he balances that character. He balances those two throughout the whole film. So you see moments that he's very sweet and kind and vulnerable, and there's moments he's trying to be really cool, and he thinks he's an amazing DJ and he gets all the girls. So it's just a fine balance that you see, and you go on a journey with Tonne, which is really fun to play, because you don't really see that vulnerability on the big screen that much, especially from a black man. Do you know what I mean? So it was just nice to really show that, and I'm glad that you could see that, and I'm glad that you didn't think I'm a predator. So,
Not
so
at all.
no, thank you for saying that.
Like, even when you were being awful, you were being an awful, like, not very nice guy. I still didn't hate you, because if I was Kelly, so all the nice and decent people watching, he didn't have the courage to break up with a rather nice girl. She looked nice, called Kelly, and so his character.
No, don't spoil it. No, we'll keep it.
Okay, all right. So I won't spoil it. But he tells some bag of lies, and I can't believe that this girl believed the lie. And then I have to give a bit, and then. But anyway, it was the type of thing where I was like, oh, if I was Kelly, I'd have to shot in my box, because that couldn't really run. But you were still so sweet and so engaging or endearing. I can understand why she let it go. I don't understand why she gave you a chance at the club, but I understand why in that moment she let that go. So this question goes back to Reggie. Reggie, did you lie to a girl like that? Where did that story come from? Because that was crazy.
I'm going to plead the fifth, and I'm not going to give you any real life information about the inspiration for the lies told by men in this film, as black men lie and black men don't cheat. How about that?
Yeah.
No final words have ever been said, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Totally
Beautifully
agree.
done, Reggie.
Thank you.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I accept that. But that also goes back to the level of honesty, in that you were able to create these three very different characters that are intertwined through the bond that they share and their genuine love of each other. But they were still able to be unpleasant and pleasant at the same time. So it's like watching a kaleidoscope of early manhood, as it were, where no one's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. All jokes aside, genuinely, the intention for me when it came to these characters was to make them as lovable as possible, both in the good and in the bad. And we've sort of touched on this idea of the Black experience and how it has been portrayed on screen, particularly when it comes to British film. And one thing that we've not seen masses of is whole characters, young men who are both good and bad without being the worst version of bad. At the worst, these young men tell a couple of lies and maybe smoke a bit of weed at the worst, as opposed to, being drawn into some of the more darker elements that we're so used to seeing in TV and film when it comes to the representation of young Black men on screen. So for me, these characters needed to be lovable, but at the same time have teeth. They're not perfect. And I certainly, as a teenager, wasn't trying to be in a gang or wasn't trying to be pulled into any of the madness that was happening on the estate that I grew up in. But at the same time, I still had a bit about me, and I was still drawn to music, and I was drawn to club nights, and I was drawn to DJing. And they were the things that I was pulled towards without being an angel, but at the same time still being a nice and a good kid. And ultimately, that's what these guys are. They're not perfect, but they are very lovable.
You brought Mega Man back to life.
I didn't know he
Was Mega Man dead? Yeah, I was like...
You brought Mega Man back to life. Mega Man's like he's a mythical character from that time. And you know Mega Man, you know So Solid Crew, and he's had some challenges since that time, but he's not somebody that I think most people from that time or grew up in that time or raved to garage would necessarily think about in their everyday life. But you chose to bring this is awesome character back to life from the scene. Why did you do that, Reggie?
I think for me as a teenager, seeing So Solid's ascent was huge because we never had pop stars that looked like us and that moved like us. You know, pop stars that happened to be black or from the black community was sort of polished and shined up and made to be a black version of their white counterparts. So Solid was the first time that we had artists at #1 on Top of the Pops that looked like kids from ends. They looked like people we grew up with, and they talk like us and they move like us. And then they took it to the next level and they became superheroes. You know, if you look at that video for 21 seconds, it doesn't feel like kids from Battersea. It feels like superheroes from another planet. And that really had a massive impact on young men like me who wanted at that time to have a career in the music industry. It made it feel like not only was it possible, but it could be as big as it was in the US. And so to try and find a way to honor that larger than life character and have him forever in this time capsule was imperative when it came to writing the script, because there were lots of tips of the cap to people who have defined the scene and that were really important to UK garage and to that subculture. And he was certainly one of them. So I needed to include him in some way, shape or form. And the way that he's included in this film is I really enjoy, because it's fun and you don't see it coming. And without giving too much away, you know, we purposely kept him out of the trailer. We kept him out of the promotional materials because we want people to be surprised when they see him on screen. And I think the scene that Jordan has and the boys have, Elliot and Reda have, with Aaron, the actor who plays a younger version of Mega Man, it's great. It's the sort of thing that people will hopefully remember.
I can't forget. I actually had to pause and finish laughing after the nightclub scene before I could continue with the rest of the film. I just wanted to have a proper laugh. So I enjoyed that inclusion, and also what you did with it. There was some dark areas or spaces within the garage movement at that time, and you made it light, you made it accessible, you made it enjoyable, and that was because of the cast. So with Elliot's character Cappo, like how did you live up to your name? When you were given this new character, how were you able to, I guess, to win the part? What is it about you and that character that's similar that made it possible? Because really, you're the linchpin. You're the one with the proper head. You're the one that's usually, apart from when you were in the clothes shop, but usually, and you try to lock the woman in the shop and take back the tickets. But apart from that, you were the level-headed guy. You're the guy that keeps everybody on track. How are you still able to do that within your kind of character role and still stand out with so much big energy from Jordan and from Reda?
I think it's just about being honest and being truthful to what the script offers and what we all orchestrated from rehearsals and prep. Like, all these characters bring different shades. It's like when I see films, it's like a portrait, all different colors, and then we come together and we create an image. So we need the funny guy, we need the outlandish guy, but also we need the reality as well, because at the same time we're telling a comedy, but we're telling a true story, and we want people to connect with the reality of their relationship. So not all of us can be Ricky Gervais, you know what I mean? Or not all of us can be the straight guy. There needs to be some sort of dynamic, because we're representing a large demographic of kids out there. So I guess with Reggie's great writing, he wanted to kind of show archetypes of different characters. I think I have a Cappo in my life, I have a Kidda in my life, and I have a Tonne in my life. And I think it was important that we had to show different archetypes in the community, because at the end of the day, not all young black boys from estates are all the same. And I think that's what Reggie was trying to show as well, because at the end of the day, I think sometimes you watch comedies and you can kind of see caricatures, because everyone's like telling gags, everyone's telling jokes, everyone's kind of fighting for scenes to be the funniest. And I think there was shade and definition and specificity that Reggie had in his script, which really made these characters real, and people are really buying into the relationship that we have, and that's what makes it authentic. And I think that just due to great writing and us just sticking to the script and sticking to the truth and the honesty of it. I think that's what the most important thing is about collaboration in art, is talking, having those conversations, us being like, you know, communicative throughout the whole process. And I think that was a team effort. It's not just on me. I think it's everyone's shade, and everyone brought different elements to the film. And I think that's the important thing that I think hopefully people get from it. It's the dynamic and the changes and the differences between these guys all shine and highlight each other's positives and negatives. If Reda wasn't so funny and comical at times, it would be very awkward in the film. You know, if I was silly and flirtatious like Tonne, maybe we wouldn't get in the tickets. So I think every character plays their purpose, and I think Reggie really thought that through when he was writing the script, because it was clear from the get-go what my job was and what my role was through the film.
What was your favorite scene?
The scene where we sing Boo by Miss Dynamite. That was probably my favorite scene. Yeah, sick scene. Very fun. We had a lot of fun filming that.
Yeah.
And also, Miss Dynamite is the only artist that got a whole song. I think she got a verse and a half. So I think that was significant, because I was like, oh, we're going, we keep going. All right, boom, let's keep it going. So yeah, I would say visually, cinematically, and for my heart, that was one of my favorite scenes as well. And for you, Reda, what was your favorite scene?
I loved filming Boo. I think that was one of the most fun days. But my favorite scene has to be my audition scene as well, which is the plantain scene with Shiloh, who plays Princess. It was just fun because I thought about that scene. It's the scene I read first, and I've read the most, and I've thought about the most, and I improv with the most, and I played with the most. So doing that scene, because like Elliot said, we all know a Kidda, we all know Elliot, we all know a Tonne. I don't know what I just said there. Cappo, we all know Cappo, we all know Tonne, we all know a Kidda. Sorry, but yeah. So being in that situation, I've been in that situation before, and I have friends where I have to kind of be like, bro, please stop talking. So to be able to play that character and having someone as good as Shiloh opposite you, and having people as emotive as Elliot and Jordan beside you, it was so funny to do, but so funny to watch back, because if you look at their reactions, it makes that scene for me. That's kind of like my favorite part of that scene. It's just looking at them to go like, bro, like stop. I love that, because I think we've all had to do that before.
So when you said when you called Princess Shabba, was that part of the script, or was that something that came from you? Because when I heard that, I was like, oh, the place is gonna mash up now. The whole thing is gonna mash up.
I think we played. Reg, if I'm correct, that's improv, right? Because I think previously, is that improv?
That's all you said.
Beanie Man. I said Beanie Man, then I said Shabba. I said listen Beanie Man, and I said listen Shabba. And I think Shabba just worked the best at the end. But we played around with it, man.
Well, one of the things that we did a lot of was improvisation, and the key for me was to make sure that we not only got what was in the script, but also gave the guys room to embellish on their characters, because they knew them so well and they truly embodied them. You know, there is no similarities between these three young men. They're friends, but they are also very different, and that is largely due to the performances of these really talented actors. And we also had a huge COVID break. You know, we were stopped mid-shoot, and they had to live with these roles for over 200 days in their houses. And in having that time to think about these characters for that bit longer, when the guys came back to finish the movie, it was almost like they knew their characters even more. And it was just really awesome seeing them sit back into it. So one thing that I always encouraged was us to schedule time to make sure we'd improvise scenes as well as shooting them to script. And that is where some of the really special moments came. And being in the edit and being able to cut between what was scripted and what was improvised, and having, you know, Jordan, Reda, and Elliot feel comfortable enough to deliver stuff that wasn't on the page was a huge part of the process, and a huge part of of what makes this feel as sparky as it does, because they've brought so much to the process as well.
Indeed. And I definitely felt that, because I was like, oh, and I felt like with the characters were so different, to be able to write comically in each individual character's voice, I was like, rah, Reggie's full of talent, man. But at the same time, I was like, yeah, he's full of talent, but there has to have been some of the actors interjection here as well, because it just rolled. And those were the bits, I think, that the bits I laughed hardest, that probably were the bits that were improv.
I mean,
So,
there's no way of knowing. I mean, the truth is that these guys were so seamless in terms of what was scripted and what they were coming up with, that in the edit, it just all flowed. And after a while, I mean, like even Reda said it himself, it's got to a point where it's like, hang on, what was scripted and what was improvised? Because it all just feels part of the sequence, you know, after a while. Like, for instance, the scene in the car with the boys originally ran for about 8 or 9 minutes. And in the edit, it's ended up being about 5. But a lot of that was improvised, and we ended up smashing a couple of scenes together. So yeah, it's a collaborative and an ongoing process, really. You know, the edit is really helpful in terms of finding the gems that may not have been there before.
And I do think, like, as well, just to add on to that, I don't think we would have been able to improvise so much if, you know, it hadn't all been set up by Reggie. Like, Reggie made these characters so specific. Each and every one of our characters so specific, but yet left a lot of room for us to play. So I think when you know a character so much, you know, him kind of speaking to us about the times and, you know, and everything, and giving us so much specificity, gave us the ability to be able to improvise. I don't think we would have been able to do that at all if there wasn't already that those kind of like bare bone, that like the skeleton that like Reggie kind of created, and we just added on top of that. So it's, yeah, he's being nice about it, but a large percentage of it is his writing, and he did add and shout to us like a few improvs from the director's chair, which really helped.
No, it's appreciated. And Jordan, your favorite scene?
Oh, I've got a favorite scene, but I don't want to say it because it's a spoiler. But another scene that I enjoyed. I think the one in Mega Man, that was really fun. It was just the whole dynamic of the scene was so fun. Like, I was scared, but Kidda was just like, what's going on? And Cappo was scared for me and trying to sort out a plan. So the whole dynamic was so fun to play with. So that's my favorite scene.
Okay. I like, there's so many scenes, but I like this scene as well, because Reda's character, Kidda, it was almost like he didn't understand the threat or the potential threat or the danger. And he was giving it all the big talk, and I was like, but you don't really understand what's going on here. You don't understand what's happening here. And then you're terrified.
Yeah.
And then Cappo's just like, oh my God, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? But the biggest thing was, which I was just thought, oh man, when you guys were like getting your money together to buy the tickets, and I was like, but you mean they're looking tickets and they really don't have no money? So it was another part of life. It just added, I guess, to the comedic texture of the scene as well. It was just so layered and on so many levels, but to the point where I just wanted you to win, and I'm sure the audience will just want you to win. It's like, okay, how are they going to get these tickets? They're going to get them. And it brings us back to the other scene in the Caribbean Takeaway, Jerk Not Jell-Off, in the Takeaway, where Princess does an about turn towards the end, and her character turns up in a way that as the audience we're not led to expect to, and I thought that was really, really nice. And that was probably the thing that I was most surprised at in the film. So where did that come from, Reggie, in terms of Precious, when Elliot's character, who was really trying to bad up this woman, which I was like, wow, you've got guts. I wouldn't do that. So I was like, I saw Elliot strong. I was like, oh, okay, okay, Cappo, let's go. But where did that come from in terms of that about turn with Princess?
I think it's the desire to not have any of these characters be caricatures. You know, the rude, feisty woman at the Caribbean takeaway could very easily become a caricature. And the way that Shiloh delivers it, she walks the line and is very, very funny and is justified in all of the things that she's delivering in terms of her performance in that initial moment of conflict with Reda's character. But then when we see her the second time around, you know, we see a different side to her character, and we see a softer side, and we see a playful side, and we see her toying with the boys, and there's just more to her, and it ebbs and flows, which is largely due to her performance. But, you know, in terms of the structure of the piece, for me, I just wanted to ensure that anything that felt like it could be two-dimensional would surprise you in terms of who these characters or what the action would end up playing out as.
And what was your favorite scene, Reggie?
Oh, me, do you know what? It's weird. I don't have a favorite scene because there's just so much of every scene that all I can think of is the process and what we had in the edit and what we missed on the day and what we needed to work with. I just, and this isn't me saying this because the boys are here, I'm just so proud of the boys and their performances. And throughout the entire piece, they just elevated everything that was written so much that it is really resonating. You know, we had the premiere on Monday. We all got dressed up and pretty much wore the same suit, all four of us, which was kind of embarrassing. The beauty about it was the first time that we've all watched the movie with that big an audience. You know, we've done screenings, but the screenings have been small. And this was the first time we had 354, to be exact, people in the room. And to hear laughs sort of flood from the back of the room down to the front and hear people laughing at different things, it was just really beautiful for me in a lot of ways. I was sat next to Jordan and I was saying to him, I can't believe they're laughing that hard at the way that you open the Motorola StarTAC. Like, why is that so funny? But it really worked in the room, and these things were really getting reactions, which were beautiful to see in a lot of ways. So it was nice to be surprised by the reactions, but it was also, for me, quite vindicating in a lot of ways that, you know, these guys made every scene pop for me. So I obviously I'm going to say I love the whole piece.
And that must include the music as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. The music is a huge part of it. I mean, maybe you guys can speak to this, you know, the point where we went away and we were talking about the music and understanding the culture and the scene, because I think one of the things that's being lost in talking about this is, you know, this film takes place at a time before Reda was born. I mean, when were you born, Reda? You were what, 1999. How old were you?
I was 5 months old, December 31st.
Which is both depressing and hilarious at the same time. And Jordan and Elliot were like a few years old. Were you like 4 or 5 years old when this film took place?
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Right. And in that, so in casting the guys, like I realized that I had to sort of put on a plate for them what garage was back then. So maybe you guys can speak to that a little more.
Yeah.
Go on, Ed. Go on.
I'll go. Don't mind. Yeah, I think research was a key part of it because we had to tap into 1999. And like Reggie helped us a lot with that we went away to Richard Curtis, is one of Reggie's mentors. He luckily gave us one of his houses in Walberswick in Suffolk for a weekend, and we just chilled, bonded as a group, got to know each other as friends, watched films like Trading Places and The End of the World. And we just got time to tap in with different people, from DJ Spoonie to Lonyo, loads of different people in the garage scene that were in and thriving at that time, because they were able to kind of tell us their first-hand accounts, because the garage scene is not the kind of thing you can just Google and find out information about how the scene was, how people used to dress, how people were dancing, the moves, the swagger, all that kind of stuff was research that Reggie had lined up for us. And I think that's the kind of thing that added the authenticity to the moments, because we actually were living, breathing garage. Like, we were listening to garage music from the day we started set to the day we finished, just so that we could live in the world and really understand it and understand the culture behind it, the fashion, why people wore their tags out and what it meant, how much these clothes were important to them people, how important Pro Beta was as a shop in the community. And I think these small little nuances is what really makes Pirates so great, because it's that attention to detail that I think a lot of films miss out on, especially films about specific cultures or specific time capsules or specific moments. And I think that's all literally, I'm not tooting your trumpet, Reg, but it's down to you, because you were so specific with the artistic, you were so specific with the artistic director Francesco about your vision and how important the Probito bags were and how important that the phones were different for all the boys, because it's their personalities and their phones are our personalities. And I think that's what I love. That's what made us all fall in love with pirates, because we understood that Reggie had a clear idea of the world, and every day it was just even more specific and even more specific and even more specific. So, yeah, boys, I don't know, is there anything?
No, I completely agree with that. I think in the Jules, I think in the specificity it became more relatable. You know, like we didn't all have the same phones. We all have different phones. Like Kidda has one with, you know, like electricity running through it and it's blue. It's like, of course that'd be Kidda's phone. And, you know, of course Elliot, Cappo's phone is this way. And of course Tonne's phone is that way. And that specificity was so nice because you could tell that the writing and the direction came from someone who knew this era perfectly. And it was very fitting, I think. And I think we're all so lucky. I don't want to speak for the boys, but I'm sure they feel the same way. We're also lucky to have the director be the writer as well, because any questions we had, I mean, Lonya was super helpful, DJ Spoonie, but I think at the top of that was Reggie. Like, he knew everything. There was no like, let me go and Google this and call a friend. He already knew, because he was near enough that age in 99 and he knew how it felt. He knew what garage. He told us what garage meant to him and what this time meant to him, and we had to try and bring that to life. And it's so nice when you have someone that is already relatable to you, but in the moment you have a script, it kind of bridges the gap between actor and director, because him being the writer, he just knew everything about the script. So, you know, Elliot will tell you, like, we'd be mentioning him at 11 p.m. going, "Hey, what about this line tomorrow? Like, obviously, like the scene tomorrow. I want to do it this way. I want to do it that way." And
what does Brassic mean? What does Brassic mean, Rich?
Yeah, he just knew there was. You know,
I can't Google it.
These things you can't find on Google. Brassic, it will give you some Oxford dictionary thing. Do you know what I mean? But Reggie knew everything, which is, and by everything I mean everything. So
100%. And like we had like 1 week rehearsal as well, and there was a time that Reggie was teaching me how to dance. How to use the dance because I didn't know. And
Reggie taught me how to drive as well.
Look at like YouTube videos of what it was like in the club, and what champagne they'll bring into the club, and their garms, and how to speak to women as well. So yeah, Reggie helped a lot massively. Like
Reggie helped you how to speak to women.
That he's the writer and director. It was great.
This is all pertaining to character. Jordan doesn't need my help in the real world. This is speak to women in that era. In real life, the last thing he needs is my help. He's doing absolutely fine without me.
So this was really your baby, Reggie. It feels like you were more than a writer and director, because you were also, I guess, like a cultural consultant. I don't know what that person would be on set. It's like you were writing. You taught Elliot how to drive stick shift. Yeah, you taught Jordan how to speech girls. You taught them how to dress. You taught them the language. You taught them everything. So
Yeah,
He's the goat. He's the goat.
Okay.
He's the goat.
Like without the truth is, you know, we're talking about an era that the boys weren't there for, and it was, as Jordan said, you know, just really fortunate that I was coming of age during that time, and these characters are coming of age during a time that these actors aren't really au fait with. So for me, I was just really happy that I was on hand to be their cheat sheet if at any point they weren't sure about something. And don't get me wrong, I know these boys have been incredibly humble. They did their research, they did their work. I would send them a documentary I found on YouTube and they'd be like, yeah, we've seen that already. You know, like they'd seen everything that there was out there. And, you know, they had to really dig to find stuff because there isn't much. And it's really interesting because it feels like garage is having a bit of a renaissance at the moment. And I don't know whether it's because my ears are really sharp to it, but everywhere I look, I'm seeing garage music, and it feels like it's on its way back. And hopefully people will refer to this film and the work that they've done as an authentic source, because, you know, the way that Jordan wears these Avrex, the sort of Moschino that they wear, the sort of iceberg that they're wearing, it's all very specific. And it's what I used to wear. You know, don't get me wrong, I had to save up months to buy a £400 shirt, but I did. And that was, you know, the thing that I would wear to the death, because that was my way into the club, you know.
Why did you call the film Pirates?
Well, it's a name that has like several meanings. Obviously, they're a young crew that are on pirate radio, but also at the time, the word pirate had different meanings in slang. And, you know, it's alluded to in the, what's not even alluded to, Jordan says the line, "These ain't no pirate jeans," because growing up, like, a pirate was fake, you know. And on the other layer and on another level, you know, these are young men who are essentially pretending to be something that they're not. You know, they are faking it. They are faking to be the big man, the lover man, or faking it to be the grown up, the professional, the leader, you know. And they haven't quite figured it out yet. So the name pirate sort of aligns with where they are as young men in their growth. It aligns with what they do and what they want to be, and it also aligns with the fact that, you know, they're buying fake clothes as well as actually stealing the real stuff.
Indeed. I guess my final question would be, what is it that you each of you very quickly want the audience to know about the film, or your connection to the film, or why the film's important to you, even if you weren't born during, or you were a baby during the garage heyday? What is it you want the audience to know?
For me specifically, I want just young boys to be able to watch this film and feel like they can relate to us. They see boys they recognize, and there's moments where we're vulnerable, we're hugging each other, where we're close to each other, we're friends, we cry, we hug, we laugh, we fight. And I just want people to see that, yeah, they are normal, and normal kids like this do exist. And I just want people to be able to relate to it and just be excited about the film.
100%. I'd say as well, like, you know, the film really is relatable for everyone. Like, if you, like, for me, I had never listened to Garage before auditioning for this. So speaking to myself, basically, in the past, I would kind of tell myself, like, this story is also about brotherhood. It's about London. It's, you know, if you live in London, or if you live in the UK or wherever, you can relate to something. Like, if you live in London, you can relate to the jerk shop. You can relate to the locations we're in. If you've got brothers, if you've got close friends, you can relate to these situations. I want people to know that this film, really is something for everyone. You know, it's a little bit of a rom-com, a little bit of a comedy, a little bit of a drama, and it's all centered and drenched in garage. So yeah, it's a relatable story.
I think, like, for me, there's a moment in the film that Sophie says, I can't remember word for word, but she says something just that says that you are enough. You don't have to be anyone else. I accept you. And I hope, like, people who watch this film, they leave after watching the film that, you know what, especially for the younger generation, that I don't have to be this type of person. I can be myself, and to celebrate that and to love themselves. So yeah.
That's really nice. I'd sort of jump onto that, actually. There's a line in that same scene as well that Elliot says. It's actually the last line of the film, and that is, where we're not stuck here, we're from here. And a few people have sort of, on the night of the premiere, stopped me about the last line of the film, and they were expressing just how much they love that line. Partially it's down to Elliot's delivery, but beyond that, it's down to the meaning of it. You know, this is a film about a group of young guys who are from, you know, council estates in London. They're working class, and that isn't the limitations as to who they can become. You know, they're not stuck in who they are now. They can be anything they want, and London doesn't hold them down. It doesn't define them. It's just who they are today, not who they'll be forever. And so, yeah, I think it's that last line: we're not stuck here, we're from here.
And that's wonderful. Thank you, Reggie Yates, Jordan Peters, Reda Elazouar, and Elliot Edusah for your time. I caught so much joke. I had to pause to laugh and get back to it. It was a wonderful film that brought back lots of memories, and you're all very precious. Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much.
Thank you for your time.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.